particularly Friday and Saturday, in terms of timeline, because there were the reports
Right.
Friday afternoon that complicated some things, I'm sure.
Sure.
So just provide a degree of clarity,
Sure.
because there are people in Georgia who insist that this was
Right.
done at about 2 o'clock.
Right. Well, obviously, we rewind a week, and we're in this room, talking to players and making sure we get them situated, because Mario is telling them that he's leaving, and our priority was to get them settled, to find an interim coach, and put together a plan to make sure those young people have a great bowl experience. So we cranked it up on Tuesday, and then you spend the next few days, getting interviews scheduled, doing Zooms, doing all kinds of background check. You lose track of time, and then, as you said, on Friday and Saturday it comes down. So for us with Dan, it was funny story actually. So late Friday night, I reached out to Dan, and we've been talking off and on throughout the day, and then we just start getting down to the details, the final few questions, and then he was in the middle of a recruiting weekend at his current job, but just always accessible. So then we started to talk to his representation, but they happened to be in Memphis. And if you remember Friday night, there's a tornado coming through Memphis, so they were in a bunker. So we got the initial conversation started Friday, but then they couldn't communicate because of the bunker, and so then we picked it up early Saturday and just hammered out the details.
In terms of the terms, I know it'll be to the board tomorrow, but in terms of years and dollars?
Yeah, we'll do it at the board tomorrow.
What did you see in a coach that hadn't had any head coach experience to feel comfortable this was the right guy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has some really unique experiences in a blueprint that's proven successful in college football. And I think at the end for us, he articulates a clear plan that kind of has three things. And there's alignment between strategy and culture, which is really important, and he knows how to add the right people and talent and then put all that together at the end of the day. And he's been a part of really high-level championship programs.
It's the first time since '77, Rich Brooks, that you've hired a defensive-minded head coach. I know you haven't made all of those hires, but was that just happenstance, or was that a focus?
No, we wanted to find the best leader for Oregon football. And I happen to be a huge fan of Rich Brooks and all that he's accomplished and having worked with him. So that worked out pretty darn good for getting Oregon football on the roll. So listen, Dan knows how all three phases fit together. He knows how to make it all fit and how to make it all work. And he knows how to put the staff, build a recruiting plan. And we're kind of already 4 years into a very similar blueprint.
Right.
There was that letter that was signed by the 14 Duck football alums talking about the Oregon way and not wanting the program to lose its identity. Have you had any conversations with them since you received that letter last week? What was their role in some of this process and the discussion about getting to this point?
Well, you might imagine I received a lot of input, not just one letter. So I received a lot of emails from all different constituents, fans, donors, current players, players' parents, former players. And so I did talk to Joey last week. He sent me that letter and shared his passion with me, and talked to some others as well. And so I think everybody wants the same thing, right? They want Oregon football to be successful. They're very proud of what they've committed to this program, the success that we've had, and we all share that same goal.
Did you feel that what they were asking for was at least reassured, if not alleviated, when Dan was hired? Have you had conversations with them since?
I talked to a number of them after, and everyone seems really pleased. I've talked to current players, players' parents, former players, in different capacities, and everyone's thrilled about what Dan brings to the leadership of Oregon football.
Rob, what happens with the $9 million from Miami, and if really effectively 10, because of what Mario earned, but you're not paying out? So where does that get allocated? How is that appropriated?
Yeah, it gets allocated to our department. There's a lot of transition costs, so that's obviously not free and clear. We may have some buyouts to pay for coaches and staff that we don't retain. Obviously, all the transition costs of buyouts we may have to pay, moving expenses. So I'm not quite clear where it'll net out. But coming out of the pandemic, we can use whatever net revenue we can get.
But does that go, was that going more to departmental first before? Is that at Dan's disposal, basically?
No, we don't. That's not how we monitor our funds. Everything is in the athletic department revenue and athletic department expenses. Obviously, we allocate it accordingly. We're making a significant investment in football, as we always have, and we will continue to do that.
Who is still on this staff right now? Specifically, I asked about Alex Mirabal and Aaron. Obviously, we saw Aaron Feld, but there's obviously been reports that they have been well, Alex was actively recruiting in Miami.
Yeah,
so-
he was, but Alex asked, he has a real commitment to his student athletes. He has a great connection, and he wanted to finish out what he started with this group, and we welcomed him back to coach for the bowl game. So I think everybody's, I'm just thinking bowl game wise, the staff is extremely committed to finishing the season, the commitment they made to the student athletes. We were able to go to the Fiesta Bowl, but it wasn't a true bowl experience. And so we're a year into a process of trying to get back to normal and these student athletes to have an experience. So, Ken Wilson, got a tremendous opportunity at University of Nevada. He's staying through. Coach DeRuiter, Coach Yates, they're all still here coaching these young men through the bowl.
Is there anybody who from the staff be here that you're aware of?
For the bowl?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't know of anybody that's, I think everybody's here coaching.
There's been some discussion of pushing the early signing period to another date. As someone who's gone through that,
Well, listen, with recency bias, I'm not sure I can give you a good strategic answer. I will say that obviously this cycle, and maybe a part of it's the shortened season last year and the financial challenges. So we at the right time, we probably ought to step back and assess, because there's no doubt that it had some impact on earlier firings.
Right.
Not only did we were the North Division champs and had a week to prepare for a champ game, and so all this is happening in a very short window, and you lose your last weekend for official visits, and you're right up against signing day. So it's probably worth a discussion, but we all wanted the early signing period because that's what the prospects wanted.
On that topic, Rob, because it's not just that move, it's that move combined with playoff expansion in the future that could bounce things back earlier into December, and then between not just this move but what happened in Notre Dame, do you think that when this all plays out eventually, that for institutionally, the things you can control, that the buyout number will now become significantly higher in the pre-December period because of, you don't want people leaving before playoff, you don't want them leaving before a February signing period, you don't want the chaos. If you can move this to the AFCA January window in 2025, this would be
I don't want to speculate. Again, I think you guys are right on. It's, this cycle has been unique, and I think everybody will step back and take a look at that. Our buyout didn't change until mid to late January, so it didn't impact that at all. And, we've seen around the country, there are some programs that aren't even blinking at that. So, but I do think with, everything that's transpired, and again, it might just be unique because there really was no cycle out of the pandemic. There are just a lot of factors that you try to step back and try to assess.
what did you tell the recruits, if you spoke to them at all, that were committed to this program? Is it take time, wait until we hire a head coach? Or?
Well, that's for the recruiting staff and the coaches. I mean, really what I would say to any recruit is, this is a great institution with incredible student athlete support. Your experience here is going to be at the center of every single decision we make. And so that's the message that we relay. I mean, obviously, style of play and coach is an important piece in that, but our priorities and our values aren't going to change one bit, no matter who the leader is of the football program.
Was Dan your first formal offer that you sent out to be the head coach at Oregon, or were there other people that got offers before him?
Well, you got to understand how this process works. I mean, you go down parallel paths often, and there's a lot of fluid conversation going back and forth, and some of these conversations, when you get to a next level of interest, might include, hey, what does the buyout look like? What do the resources look like for me to be successful? We have very, very high expectations here, and that scares some people away. And so you can go down a path and get into some of these conversations, but when you get down to the real nitty gritty, we negotiated through a contract with one person.
There's been a lot of discussion this week about the concept of premier jobs and whether or not the purpose of sticking around a place for a decade plus is even possible anymore, with guys like Lincoln and Brian moving around the college world. I'm curious if you think that the paradigm has kind of shifted here a little bit, where there maybe shouldn't be as much of an expectation that you're going to have somebody around for 20 years anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, continuity is a strategic advantage. It really is, but only if you're having success. I mean, continuity without sustained success means nothing. So, at the end of the day, if you're having great success and you can retain everybody, that's outstanding. But if you look across the country, there's very few programs that do that. So our focus is really back to the process. making sure that we have everything we can do to support our student athletes and compete at the highest level, and then be ready for whatever happens in the market.
If like stipulations and expectations are something that could potentially like scare somebody away, are those similar expectations and stipulations that are in Dan's contract and the expectations?
No, they weren't. I'm not talking about contractual stipulations. I'm talking about just performance expectations. That's what I'm talking about. I can tell you this. Every time I told Dan about an expectation, he was like, "Yeah, mine's higher." Yeah, I mean, we were absolutely on the same page, and the enthusiasm, whether it was 2 a.m. and I said, "Keep your phone close," he embraces high expectations, and that's a marriage here.
You may have answered this, but when Coach Chris Small announced he was leaving, was Dan Lanning on the radar, or when did he first become on the radar?
Dan Lanning was absolutely on the radar from day one. You always have a list, and we're in conversations nationally with college football. It was, everybody could see what Dan Lanning, it was a historic defense. I mean, they averaged giving up less than 10 points. And so when you work in this business, you're connected with what's going on nationally, and Dan Lanning was on the radar.
Thanks, everyone.